a lot of people who talk about the story of the Good Samaritan, they don't know that background. So they don't know about the rivalry between Jews and Samaritans. They just think it's a story that's saying, hey, we should help people. Yeah, this is where we see the fight, where we see the twist revealed. During that conversation, they've got Sam hostage up on this balcony on the upper level, and we find out that Joe is not the good guy. He is actually the villain. He's actually Nemesis. To Cyrus's shock, what did you guys see here? Did you like this scene?
I did. I didn't actually see that coming. And the whole time, Cyrus is calling him good guy. You know, come on, good guy. Get up and fight, good guy. And I didn't see that twist coming. For the whole movie, I thought that Joe was the Samaritan. But apparently he's not. He's not the good guy.
Is he?
He's the bad guy.
I got duped too, but Doug, you didn't.
That was a theory I had going into the movie, and thinking of that while watching it. If you actually watch it again and you know that he's Nemesis, you can see. I mean, he never claims to be Samaritan. He never,
right.
Whenever he's talking about Samaritan, he always talks about him in the third person. So just, like I said, thinking about that going in, you catch those little things, and it's like, all right, a couple are a coincidence, 3 or 4, now it's a pattern. Okay, he's definitely Nemesis.
Did you like this twist?
There was...
Oh, no, I always love twists, yeah. Yeah, and you got 2 out of 3 of us.
Yeah, I did.
That's
I liked
a good twist.
He made a reference earlier in the movie, too, and he said, like, the conspiracy theorist guy said that Nemesis' whole plan was to do this and this and this, and at one point Joe goes, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. That was kind of a hint right there that I even, looking back on it now, that, oh, well, okay, maybe, you know, now it makes sense why Joe knows. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what my mission was. Yeah, I thought I didn't see it coming, and those are the best kind. If it was too obvious from the beginning, this movie just wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out why that scene was in there, because the reporter turns out to be wrong. And I was trying to figure out if, now that you say that, maybe it was just there to hint or foreshadow that Joe was actually Nemesis. But at the time, I was trying to figure out, when I saw the twist, I was like, were they trying to do that to say that, like, sometimes we make connections that aren't there? Like, we read something in the news and we project that, like, someone is a villain and they're really not, or we just kind of mischaracterize people, and just because somebody is a investigative reporter. I mean, some of them are really good, but it doesn't mean that everything they write is accurate, like their opinions. I don't know. I wondered if there was any kind of subtext there, because the gist of the movie now is people are not what they seem. Morality is more complex, because now we've got the villain who's been helping people this whole time, and I love that. I'm like, yes, like they're defeating the idea of people being either good or bad, black and white, you know, and they're making people more morally complex, trying to get us to think more about our own assessments of other people. That's what I loved about this twist.
Yeah, and this actually really goes into, like, you know, it's fitting for the name Samaritan now with the Good Samaritan story, because here, again, is the one person that you wouldn't think would be helping people is the one that's actually doing all the helping. You know, it's the bad guy is the good guy now. So yeah, that really does tie into the whole Good Samaritan story.
Yeah, actually, because, yes, the person you wouldn't expect is the Samaritan. But a lot of people who talk about the story of the Good Samaritan, they don't know that background. So they don't know about the rivalry between Jews and Samaritans. They just think it's a story that's saying, hey, we should help people. But they don't realize Jesus is looking at in the Jew's face and saying, hey, your enemy is your neighbor. You need to love them and help them when they're in trouble. That's a deeper level. So when I saw the movie do this, I'm like, oh, they have to know what this story is about. Like, someone was into theology who was writing this. Or Stallone, I saw he's executive producer on this, or he's a producer on this.
Yes.
Probably.
So,
but
that's
with all movies, big stars like that. If I'm in it, I'm a producer, so I can get more money.
Yeah.
Since Tom Cruise produces all
He
his
generally
movies.
writes his own films.
You know, you could read a lot of spiritual things into the film that aren't necessarily there, but that one detail of making the villain the hero, that made me think, oh, they know this story. They've studied it. This must be intentionally inspired by the Good Samaritan story in the Bible. I don't know. What do you think about that? Did they reveal their hand there, or are we still kind of reading too much into it?
I don't know. I think when they were writing this and they are going to go with the title Samaritan, I wouldn't be surprised if they had to do some background on, you know, this Samaritan story and what makes it. And they probably read that and they said, we could tie that in. I honestly, I'd be very surprised if they didn't go back and look at that stuff based on how well it fits into the actual Good Samaritan story. I don't think it's a coincidence.
No,
If you think
absolutely. They, I mean, it's in the name. They call it Samaritan. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and the fact that so many things happened that do come from those chapters and everything, then yeah, I think he knew his Bible, or knew of at least the story, looked into it, grabbed a few things, and put his original twist on it. And I think it works.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, you know, the headings in the Bible, like the titles, they weren't there in the original. Like, those titles were inserted later by scribes. So when a person in ancient times would read the story, they would not know that the story is called the Good Samaritan. That would be a twist, just like the end of this movie for us. So they're reading along, the Jews are reading along, and all of a sudden they get to this end of the story where the Samaritan is the person who helps the dying man. Like, one, that probably would have ticked a lot of them off, but it would have been a shocking twist too. So that's interesting. But we're spoiled now because now they've got those titles in the Bible, and that tells us that the story is about a Samaritan. Nobody would have known that at that time.
Good point.
So how did you like the showdown? Was this worthy of Stallone's other action movies that I haven't seen yet? Because I told you guys this was my first Stallone movie.
Oh yeah, Stallone comes in and kicks some butt and does it a little over the top, which, by the way, is another decent Stallone movie.
No, it's not.
Over the top.
It's so bad, but it's classic. It's awful.
It's one of those that, I mean, you'll watch it.
You won't
it's
like
not.
it.
It's not his best, but at the same time,
Yeah, if you're,
like
if
it.
you're in a
Stallone movie.
Stallone,
It's got its.
thing.
It's got its moments.
Is it so bad?
I just said over the top, and it's like, oh,
my mind went there too.
It's totally 80s. But yeah, they always have the big climax, and this is pretty typical Stallone. You know, he's kicking butt and he's throwing people through walls because he's a superhero this time.
Yeah, with CGI,
but yeah.
this fight is much cooler because he's like, throwing people completely across the warehouse, and it looks like he's throwing it. It's not him going, huh, and then a cut of the person, it's straight up. And the guy's going, he's like, oh, yep, there he went. So
Yep.
CGI makes fights a lot better now than they were in the 80s. So keep that in your mind when you're watching older Stallone movies, because they're good fights, but when you can't literally show somebody's head getting ripped off, or because it is a gory movie.
Aren't they supposed to have like stuntmen sacrifice themselves during those filming?
On set?
They could just use clones.
In Rocky 4,
I want
in Rocky 4, and even in Rocky 4, and even in Balboa, Stallone actually gets in the ring and told the guy that he's fighting with, "We're going to actually hit each other. We want this to look real." So he's in the ring in Rocky 4 with Dolph Lundgren, and he's telling Lundgren, "Go ahead and really hit me." Lundgren broke Stallone's ribs and put him in the hospital, like almost killed him during the filming of Rocky IV.
Wow.
Yeah, so these guys can take a beating, and it sometimes could be really disastrous. When he did Balboa, he had an actual boxer in the ring with him to play the champ that he's going to fight. They hit each other. That's like there's a featurette where they have to, like, this is what you have to do if you're going to be in a Rocky film. You got to take a hit. Stallone pops him, and he's like, "You got to hit me now." And this guy's like, "Oh, I don't want to hit you." And he's like, "No, you have to hit me." So he gets hit in the face, and it's like, that's how we're going to fight this. And they only put sound effects on actual hits, and if they didn't hit, there's no sound effect. So when you watch Balboa, it's like watching a real boxing match. They are really hitting each other. So Stallone actually goes on, when it comes to stunts, he'll do a lot of them himself because he wants that to feel real. Now, I don't know how much he did in this one, but because he's like 80 years old now. But
76, 77.
76. Yeah, he does a lot of his own stuff, and to make that authentic. So I'm sure he's got a lot of, bruises when he comes out of even making a film like this, doing the fight scenes. I guarantee he got hit.